USA folks, and good afternoon, those from the UK. I see we got a number. God bless you all. My name is Scott Lee, and I'm definitely alcoholic. I got a bad case of it, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to treat it with you fine folks today. Wow, what a spectacular group of people. Look at us. Look at us. Isn't this something? Wow. I like to open anything I do with a quote from Lois Wilson. Was asked one time what she did in a moment of silence. She said, I invite God to the meeting. That's not, I don't believe God's here. I do believe that. I'd like to take a moment in each and our own way to invite God, just in case you don't have one. Let me recommend you borrow mine. I recommend him very highly. He's got a great sense of humor. And if you don't think so, Andy is running this meeting along with Sharon. I mean, what would it take to convince you? Anyway, he's got a great sense of humor. Has been keeping me sober continuously since 28 June 1984. I have a group of 39-year chips in my pocket. I may talk about that later. And so anyway, I recommend him highly. You can address him as the God of Scott's limited understanding, get you off on the right foot. And I'll just meet you back here. Let's have a moment in each in our own way, literally acknowledge the presence of deity. Amen. Wow. Thank you. It put me in mind of Don Pritz. By the way, if you don't know that name, your education is badly lacking. Don't go to bed tonight without getting a couple of Don's talks. But he's misquoted all the time. He did not say God was a gentleman. He said he learned to treat God like a gentleman. Gentlemen don't go where they're not invited. They don't stay where they're not made welcome. We've just invited him. I will now conduct myself in a manner I think will make him welcome, which for me meant I had to clean up my language. It took away about 98% of the jokes I used to tell. I had to make some rather massive changes. But being a newcomer meeting, I thought one of the most important things I could talk about was my own experience with sponsorship. I zipped through a 28-day treatment program in 6 weeks flat, just because I've always picked things up quickly. And one counselor in one session at the treatment center gave me the single most important thing I needed to get while I was in treatment. He convinced me that I had to quit deciding what I was going to do or not do about my own recovery. He talked me into the idea I was going to have to do it all, because I need to win this time. I need to win now. I cannot afford to not win this time. If this ring sign I'm holding up here is my recovery, here's what hangs from it. My sanity. I've been to the insane asylum in the little rubber room with no doorknob on my side in my underwear. I think I was in my underwear. I know there was no doorknob on my side. What else is hanging from it? My life. I was an Air Force pilot for 5 years in active alcoholism. I've got 2,500 hours of flying time, not to mention some jealous husbands and some drug deals gone bad. Oh, I should be dead a number of times. My freedom. I flew a mission classified above top secret when I was in Southeast Asia. Under the influence, I taxied my plane off into the grass at 4 o'clock one morning. I should be serving life in a military prison. What else hangs from it? How about my relationship with this neat lady I got in my life? How about my relationship with these magnificent people I'm so close with? How about my job? How about my vehicle? How about my home? How about my peace of mind? How about my relationship with my kids and grandkids? How about there's nothing in my life I care about at all that isn't hanging from my recovery? Nothing. Or if I lose that recovery, all those things hit the pavement and shatter. And I didn't come here to sell that to you. I didn't even know I was going to talk about it. I don't know what your situation is. That's mine right now. It's over 39 years. And I have to win now. And that man convinced me of that in one session with one question. Changed my life. I went back and thanked him years later. I need it all, and I need to win now. And what I realized when he said that was it doesn't matter what the price is to keep this. I'm paying, because without this, I don't get all the rest of these. That makes this one the most important one. I was in a mustard seed club in Chicago 30 odd years ago. And a lady said, my priority isn't what I say it is. My priority is what I do. Want to know what my priorities are? Don't listen to my words about the future. I believe my own BS. I've only got 2 brain cells left. One of them creates BS, the other one buys it. All right. So I don't listen to my words about the future. I look at my actions in the recent past. What was accomplished was a priority. What was not accomplished was not a priority. And anything I say to the contrary is a lie I'm telling myself. And boy, I got to get out of that business. I'm working out of the 5th edition big book. That's quotation from one of the guys I sponsor. He said he's read the 4th edition several times, and there are things in the book now that were not in it. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying, is that this piece of spiritual literature is alive. When you read it again, you find things that you'd swear were not there before. You would have seen that. And it's because I read it with new eyes. Here's the new eyes piece on page 85. It's easy to let up in the spiritual program of action, rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol's a subtle foe. We're not cured. We really have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So clearly, my daily reprieve, which if you look up reprieve as a stay of execution or a delay of punishment, is not contingent on my spiritual condition. Not at all. I don't know what my spiritual condition is, and I'm not qualified to judge it. It is contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Maintenance means two things. To maintain in the sense of not losing something I've already got. It also means to maintenance my spiritual condition in the same sense that I maintenance my vehicle. I rotate the tires. I change the oil on time. That squirted thing from windshield, I got fluid in it. I maintenance my spiritual program. Daily prayer and meditation in the morning. I let people in traffic. I'm what they call a type A personality. I get that car, I'm going somewhere. Put your blinker on near me. I'll let you in traffic. Slow down, let you in. It's a spiritual experience for me every time. I say please and thank you. I attend quite a few meetings. I have a sponsor. He knows he's my sponsor. I talk to him. I tell him what's going on. I have the high honor and privilege of sponsoring the most fabulous group of men in the world. And I stay in tight contact with all of them. I carry meetings into treatment centers and gated communities. That's jails, by the way, for those who didn't recognize the term. And I close my days with prayer and meditation. So I need to keep an eye on that. I'm a very good judge of how much maintenance I'm doing on my spiritual condition. What the condition is, I have no idea, and it's not my problem. It is little lessons like that I picked up from guys like Pritz that have just changed my life. So I got that lesson from that counselor in the treatment center that I'm going to have to do it all. And I came out and I almost went to 90 meetings in 90 days. And I did I'm going to give you the 2 best kept secrets in AA. And this being recorded, I'm going to do it anyway. All right, here's the first one. Directions on doing the 4th step have been very cleverly concealed in the pages of this book. It's one of our best kept secrets. And the other one is the definition of the program, which we keep secret by reading it at almost every meeting, which right here today. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. So the steps are clearly not part of the program. They are the program. No steps, no program. Somebody gave me a definition of insanity. Insanity is thinking you're in a 12-step program and not actually taking all 12. I would note, if you haven't taken all 12, you're not in a 12-step program. And you spending part of a Saturday listening to somebody like me, you need some kind of help. I'll tell you that. You might want to think about getting into a 12-step. Anyway, just an observation. So I got out of treatment in mid-August of 84. And by mid-November, I was so dry, I was a fire hazard. And I had done everything on the aftercare plan except getting a sponsor. And some of you are going to laugh at this. I was so insane, I was looking for a sponsor I could relate to, which may be the single dumbest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, I'm a newcomer. Who can I relate to? I can relate to some other squirrel who has no idea what's going on, I can relate to. I'll be forever thankful I didn't find a sponsor I could relate to. We'd both be dead by now. No, please, not that. What I need is a sponsor whose suggestions I would follow. Why would I do that? I want to look like he looks. I want to sound like he sounds. I want my life to work like it looks like his life is working. Anyway, I didn't have those pieces. I'm sitting at the Oak Hill meeting. They meet Friday nights at 8 o'clock, once a week. I'm sitting in that meeting, and I can't hear the meeting because the voices in my head are so loud. I'm trying to hear the meeting. I can't. And it's the voices of the counselors in the treatment center all saying the same thing. No sponsor, no hope. If you don't get a sponsor, you don't have a snowball's chance. They're all saying the same thing. Sonny Luther has chaired the meeting. He's got a 15-year chip. He's a professional purchasing agent. I'm a professional salesman. Maybe that's close enough. I don't know. I got to do something. So I go to Sonny after the meeting. I said, will you sponsor me? He says, yes, I will. I said, oh, great. He said, here's my home number. Here's my work number. Call me. Wow, I have a sponsor. No, you don't. You have 2 phone numbers. Very different from having a sponsor. That was Saturday night, 9:15. I feel so good about having a sponsor in here that I wait until Tuesday afternoon at 2:00 and call him at work. Sonny answers the phone. Sonny Luther. I say, it's Scott. He said, are you okay? If I'd said no, he'd have dropped it all. I guarantee I know he would have. I said, I'm okay. He said, well, good, because I'm swamped here at work. Can you call me another time? Yeah, I can. Okay, goodbye. Now I'm doing great. I not only have a sponsor, I've called him. I feel so good about the great job I'm doing that I wait until Friday afternoon at 2:00 and call him at work. Yeah, you figured it out. Saturday morning, I spot a guy named Jerry Crow. And I realized that when he talks, the voices in my head shut up. He makes perfect sense. He's carrying a 5-year chip, which sounds like forever to me. We're graduates of the same university. And I know this thing with Sonny isn't working. What I don't know is that I'm the problem. Sonny was fabulous. I was the problem. Jerry, would you sponsor me? I said, well, we'll see. Do you already have a sponsor? Yeah. He said, well, here's your first assignment. Assignment? I thought a sponsor like a new best friend going to introduce me around, show me some of the better meetings, maybe loan me some money, fix my wife. We don't have time to cover all the things I was wrong about when I got here. Your first assignment is to tell him he ain't your sponsor anymore. What an order. I can't go through with it. Oh, how terrible. And I thought only a coward would do something like that over the phone. And I'm only seeing Sonny Friday nights at that meeting. It's the longest week of my life as I wait with heavy heart, knowing that I'm going to devastate Sonny with the terrible news that he is not going to get to sponsor St. Scott of Nashville. I'm probably going to have to hold him while he sobs while I tell him this. Yeah, some of you are laughing. Good. And so I go early to the meeting because I know me, I'm a coward. If I don't do it immediately, I won't do it at all. Sonny's at the meeting early making the coffee, by the way. He's got 15 years. You want 15 years? He's being of service. So I went up to him. I said, Sonny, I've asked someone else to sponsor me. And he said, good. Who? That really surprised me. And I said, Jerry Crow. He said, fantastic. Jerry knows that big book. He's done those steps. I think he'll make a great sponsor for you. Then he said something I wouldn't understand for about a year. He said, this wasn't working for me either. I wonder what that means. Because, see, I believe what's going on in here. And what I thought when I asked him to sponsor me, I thought I was saying, I'm a dead weight, would you drag me? You're going to hate this. There's nothing in it for you. Take you away from your job, take you off the tennis courts and the golf course and away from mowing your grass and doing your chores and playing with your wife and kids and watching your team on TV. And there's nothing in it for you. And I've given up some of my manhood to ask for help because real men don't ask for help. And that's what I thought. So that's how it was. Turns out all of that's exactly, perfectly, 100% dead solid on wrong. All of it. But I thought it. So that's how it was. I think my recovery really began when I started to release my grip on the things I knew for sure. When I came to you in the summer of '84, one of my problems was what I didn't know for certain. My biggest problem was the things I knew for certain were actually wrong. I'll give you another one. At about 11 months, I went to an old timer and I said, you guys said that by the time I was sober a year, my sleeping patterns will level out. And they haven't. I don't sleep. And he said, I just watch you drink 2 big cups of coffee here at an 8 o'clock at night meeting. And I said, caffeine doesn't affect me. And he said, if you drink a quart of scotch a day and smoke 6 or 8 joints, it won't. And I said, oh. And I've been sleeping since, not that night. And I knew to the depths of my soul that caffeine did not affect me. I'm not sure how he knew the number of joints, but I knew for a fact that I could have passed a lie detector. And I wonder today, what do I know for absolute certain that's actually wrong? Jennifer Kelly, if you don't know that name, your education is badly lacking. Don't go to bed tonight. Jennifer Kelly, Plano, Texas, says, be wrong. It's delightful. I love that. I'm on a constant search for people who have what I want, who disagree with what I say, or I disagree with what they say. Now, I don't want to fight, but it's a chance for one of us to learn, and I don't care which one I'm in. I'm in. I wonder today what I know for sure is actually incorrect. Anyway, Sonny said, I think you'll make a great sponsor. This wasn't working for me either. See, I didn't know sponsorship was a two-way street because I believe what was going on in here. I didn't know that you can't give without receiving and you can't receive without giving. It's spiritual law. It cannot be done. That what I've discovered is when you're having a hard time, if I get to love on you, I get this good feeling about myself and this closeness to God. When I'm having a hard go, if I don't let you know, if I don't let you love on me, it's selfish because I blocked your chance to feel good about yourself and get close to God by giving. And that sponsorship is always a two-way street. If it's working for one, it's working for both. If it ain't working for one, it ain't working for either one. I had a sponsor who was going to teach me that years later. Sponsor number 3. And I called him one day and I said, "Rah, rah, 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 this guy I'm sponsoring. What should I do?" And he said, "Drop him." I said, "I'm serious." He said, "I'm serious." I said, "I don't get it." He said, "What are you asking him to do that he's not doing?" I said, "Well, call me every day, call his parole officer, look for a job, go to a meeting every day and start his 4-step. How much of that's he doing? He's not doing any of it. You are not his sponsor. He is. You're his fire chief. And when his tail feathers are ablaze, he calls you and siphons off some of your serenity, puts out his fire and goes right back to doing it his way. Could you stay sober on the program he's working? No. Can he? I don't think so." He said, "You are probably right." I said, "How do you feel when you work with him?" I said, "Well, I feel like to pull the corks out of my heels and the blood ran out." He said, "How do you feel when you work with Bill Kay?" I said, "Oh, he lights me up like Chinese New Year." I said, "Really? What are you asking Bill to do what he's not doing?" "He's doing it all." He said, "There you go." You can tell, not every time, but by and large, you can tell. When you hang up the phone from talking to a sponsee, did you get a spiritual lift? Are you brighter because of it? Not every time. It won't be every time, but it'll run in the 90s. Because if you're not, here's the story. If it's not working for one, it ain't working for either one. And that's one of the ways I measure it. That's one of the things I look at. I have the privilege of sponsoring these fabulous men, and I get a spiritual lift virtually every time I talk to one of them. That's part of what this whole package is about. So anyway, I went to Jerry the next day, and I said, I dropped him. Sponsor me. He said, "Great, I'll sponsor you my way." And I said, what does that mean exactly? And he said, "You are too sick to stay sober on the fellowship of AA. You will need the program also." And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he gave me the best kept secret. Of course, here are the steps we took. Are not part of the program. They are the program. Well, I had looked ahead, and there were several of those steps that I did not particularly want to do. And what he said was, "You will work the 12 steps at the pace I set, the way I lay them out, or I will drop you like a bad habit because I'm a work with losers." And he scared me so badly that the truth jumped out on me. I don't know about you, but I save the truth for emergencies. I don't spread it around real thick. And I said, "Jerry, I don't want to do the steps." He said, "That's okay." I said, "Oh, good." He said, "As long as you do them." I don't think we're communicating. Yeah, we are. Been hearing the word willingness. Here's the definition. It's when I, as your sponsor, ask you to do something you don't like, that you don't think will help, that you don't think matters, that you don't want to do, and you do it anyway. It is that do it anyway that defines bottom, willingness, and whatever the elements are, surrender. They all have the same definition. Well, I don't like how this is going, so I hit him with my Sunday punch. I said, "Why?" When I ask why, I have yet, by the way, to hear a spiritual question begin with the word why. Why is a management question. And that's what he said. I said, "Why?" And he said, "All the why." He said, "I don't answer why questions of the men I sponsor. And the reason is, why is a management question? The first step says you ain't in management. Consequently, all the questions begin with why have the same answer. And the answer is you don't need to know." And I hated that when he said it. Today I embrace it. It's one of my cornerstones. I thought it was not knowing that made me crazy. Incorrect. It was needing to know that was making me crazy. When I was able to lay down the need to know, I got peaceful. From a position of peace, I began to know. But the knowing is not worth anywhere near as much as the peace. But I didn't have that information at that time. And but I noticed this about myself. When I ask why, I am never hunting an answer. I'm looking for something I can argue with, manipulate, fight, change. I'm never looking for an answer. And he knew that. And he said, "But I'm feeling kind of generous this morning, Sparky. I'm going to give you a free one." I'm going to answer that why question for you, and I don't want you to ask another one. Lifetime. You are out of the why business. The reason you have to do the 12 steps is because alcoholic and those alcohol substitutes you've been using are not your problem. What? They're not your problem. They're your answer. They make you taller, smarter, better looking, expert on many subjects. I'm expert on subjects I never heard of, right? Fantastic dancer. So when they look at it, that stuff was never my problem for a single second. It was my answer. That's why I couldn't put it down and leave it down, because it was not my problem. It was my answer. And I'm going to have a new answer if I'm going to put the old one down and leave it down. And I'm saying why every time he takes a breath. And he says, our program's kind of like going to the dentist. We have to drill before we can fill. We got to dig that poison out of your soul. So what's the first 9 steps are about? Like the dentist, we've got Novocaine. Here we call that Novocaine sponsorship, fellowship, home group, love. It's not near as hard as the way you've been living. I'm still saying why. And this is where he got me. He said, think of yourself as a garbage can. I got that, Jerry. I can do that. So what we're going to do with these steps is we're going to dump you out. We're going to scrub the can nice and clean, stand it back up. We're going through your life. Most of it's garbage. We're going to toss it, but portions are good. For example, do you love your children? I said, very much. He said, wonderful. We'll keep that. We finish these steps. You're going to be a big, empty, clean can with just a little good stuff in the bottom. The reason is one of these days, very heavy, something heavy, going to slam into your heart. He says, your father's going to die. And on that day, if you don't have, you're going to have a little good stuff in the bottom. But on that day, if you don't have that big, empty, clean can to store that pain in, while we love you back to spiritual health, you will escape. And the only escape you know are killing you and tearing the hearts out of the people that love you. And I ran out of why. And I allowed the men to coach me through the 12 steps. And I got what I think is the most powerful promise in the books. First line of page 60 says 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result. Jill, I love the way you read it. I hear people read A results, not what it says. A is one of several or one of many. The is singular. Comes to me. One thing is the result. It's a spiritual awakening. It's been my experience. Spiritually awakened alcoholics do not drink beverage alcohol or take alcohol substitutes, and they don't ever want to. If you're new, our mission here is not to change you so you never do any of that again. That's not it. It's to change you so you never want to again. What happened to me somewhere in that process, I had laid down the old answer for a while, but somewhere in that process, I picked up the new one. And the new answer is so much better than the old one that the old one doesn't call my name anymore. I'm sober since 28 June 1984. I got a sponsor, I think in November, it could have been October. It's right in there. And I was somewhere in the step work in mid-December, the last time I wanted anything to change my mood. It has been gone that long. It doesn't call my name anymore. And life has happened since then. I have made way too much money. I have been up against bankruptcy. I had 2 divorces, one I wanted and one I didn't. My daughter fired a pistol into her mouth and survived. I found her in a pool of blood in her bed. We went through that for 60 days. She's doing just fine. We talked yesterday. She's all right. I was diagnosed with cancer in my throat in June of 20. As I'm sure you noticed, they took my teeth. They can't fit me in dentures. It doesn't matter. I got so much scar tissue in here, I can't swallow anything thicker than applesauce. I live on chocolate and sugar. I'm on a liquid diet the rest of my life. So I can either look at, I'm on a liquid diet the rest of my life, or I get to live the rest of my life. I've made my choice. Don't feel sorry for me. I don't. Now, I don't want to watch you eat, but, and I do dream about food 2 or 3 nights a week, but I'm perfectly okay with it because I became okay with me. Somewhere in that step process, we dug enough of the poison out of my soul that I became comfortable in my own skin. All my life, I felt like I wasn't good enough. Nothing I ever did could measure up. I've been the great actor all my life. And my act is, I'm going to try to be the guy I think you want me to be. You is defined in whoever's in front of me right this second. I'm a different guy to everybody. And the greatest fear of my life, people from different parts of my life be at the same place, same time. How am I going to act? Because I'm acting all the time. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to hold up that mask all the time. Tremendous amount. I don't know how much longer I could have done it. I think if it hadn't been for alcohol, I would have been suicide before I was 21. I don't think I could have done it. I think alcohol saved my life. until I could get to you. It anesthetized that feeling that I wasn't good enough. But it was a temporary fix. This step thing is permanent as long as I keep doing what I've been taught to do. Spiritual awakening. There was a moment this morning I was asleep. The very next moment I was awake. When I stepped out of the shower, I was more awake. When I finished my first cup of coffee, I was more awake. Spiritual awakening, I believe, is of that nature. And there's always another lesson, always another one. It's so exciting. I'm in one right now. Always another lesson. But it's possible to go back to sleep spiritually. And I don't want to bother my sponsor with that. He's too busy. And I need to get some balance in my life. I think I'll cut back on my meeting schedule and get some balance in my life. And everybody cheats on their taxes. And I can go back to sleep spiritually. Page 164 references a fellowship of the Spirit. And I think I'm going to read this. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Get freely where you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. Fellowship of AA has a simple entrance requirement. You got to say you want to quit drinking. That's it. You're in. Nobody can say you're not in. Fellowship of the Spirit has rather different entrance requirements. They look to me like the steps in narrative form. This is my experience. I have never seen a member of the Fellowship of the Spirit go back out again. I have seen quite a few members of the Fellowship of AA go back out. Never a member of the Fellowship of the Spirit. I've only seen two people I know for certain did what's in this book go back out. I sponsored them both. One of them married his new higher power. And we used to say, I wonder how she likes him now. Well, that information was in the legal notices in the newspaper not real long after that. She divorced him. He's back now carrying, I believe, a 13-year ship, plus or minus maybe one or two. The other one's a hotel manager, and he started running a dude ranch in Arizona, 40 miles from the nearest meeting, and quit going. 2 years later, he drank for 2 weeks. Today, he's carrying a 20-year ship. There's only two people I know for sure did what's in this book to drink again. And the way I like to say it is they allowed their membership in the Fellowship of the Spirit to lapse. And when that membership lapsed, they relapsed. And when they re-upped their membership in the Fellowship of the Spirit, they got healthy again. They haven't gone back out. They're both double-digit recovery now. You're going to hear some people say some get it, some don't. You tell them, Scott from Nashville said that's a lie. It's a terrible lie. Some do it and some don't. The ones who do it all get it. If you'll do it, we can't keep it from you. Can't keep it from you. I'm going to talk about sponsorship. I got about 10 minutes left. Doug, it's funny. I'm not going to try to talk about sponsorship in 10 minutes. I think the three most important phrases I can say to a sponsee are, I love you. God is love. When I give love, I give God. It is the highest gift. The second one is, I'm proud of you. I'm on a constant search for ways to say, I'm proud of you, to lift their spirits. It has to be honest to lift their spirits. And the third, and maybe the most important thing I can say, is, I don't know. When I sign on to sponsor, I don't sign on to know everything. And when I was new, my sponsor knew everything. And I thought when I started sponsoring, I had to know everything. No, not necessary. But I have to be ready to say, I don't know. And I know where to go to get the answer. I've got a phenomenal team. I tell the new people all the time, I've got a number one problem in my life. Number one, I deal with it every day of my life. Biggest problem I've got more spectacular people in my life than I have time for. Mr. Newcomer, how'd you like to trade your biggest problem for that one? We'll get you a big book and a sponsor, and we'll show you how. Because everybody I know that's done what's in this book has got that for a number one problem. It's pandemic among us. We can't keep up. We're talking before the meeting. A couple of folks talking about having 1,000 numbers in their phone. I get it. Can't swat them. Isn't it phenomenal? And I was afraid that recovery is going to be a long gray tunnel full of dull people. Has not been my experience. I think rule one of sponsorship is, if they're ready, I can't do it wrong. If they're not ready, I can't do it right. It isn't up to me. Rule two is, if I take credit for the ones that make it, I get the blame for the ones that don't. Some of them are going to die. Those things I think are terribly, terribly important. It's important for me to coach him through the 12 steps at a pace that makes sense to me. The big book on page 96 defines sponsorship in 2 sentences. I've been talking for several pages about a 12-step call. It says, suppose you're now making your second visit to a man. Now, here we'll define someone who's sponsorable. He has read this volume, says he's prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program of recovery. That's someone who's sponsorable. They've read the book or they've tried. By the way, if you've had the experiences, you try to read something as your eyes move across the page and your mind moves across the universe, read out loud. You'll trap your mind in a moment. So he's read this book. He understands the 12 steps are the program. He's prepared to go through with the 12 steps. Perfect. Now we'll define sponsor. Having had the experience yourself, you give me much practical advice. What experience? Experience going through the 12 steps. What advice? Advice on how to go through the 12 steps. Sponsorship in 2 sentences. There it is. There it is. I believe God blesses sponsorship. I believe I have a wisdom vastly beyond my own when I communicate with a man I sponsor, when I invite God into this thing and ask him to make me perfect. Page 13 says I can do that. I ask him to make me perfect whenever I talk to the guys I sponsor. I might be a perfectly open channel. And I have the experience. I can see a bunch of you. I'm going to ask you to show of hands. Who's had the experience? Somebody asked you a question, and the moment before they asked, you didn't know the answer. And you open your mouth, and not BS, but a piece of the great golden truth that you didn't know falls out. And 3 hours later, you can't quote it. Sometimes you can't remember what it was. Put them up. I see some hands up here. Yeah. When I do that in a meeting at these conferences I go to, get 2/3 to 3/4 of the hands go up. Phenomenal experience. I had one not too long ago. A guy, a sponsor, calls me, roar, this guy in my home group. And I heard myself say, isn't one of our assignments to learn to love the unlovable? And he and I both said, wow, because I didn't know that. But serving the God of love is not a part-time job. And I have times when I'm unlovable. And I don't need you to judge me then. I'm probably covering that thoroughly myself. That's when I need you to love me the most. So maybe when you need me to love you the most is when you're the most unlovable. And serving the God of love is not a part-time job. And I will either serve the God of my addiction or I will serve the God of love. That's this many choices. This many. And I've made my choice. Some days the implementation is better than others, but I have made my choice. So I think my first job as a sponsor is to love him. My second job is to take him through these 12 steps at a pace that makes sense to me based on what I know about his life. I mean, he's 65 years old, single and retired. I have got a program for him. He's 25 years old and got a wife and 5 kids and working 3 jobs. I got a whole different plan for him. It's all going the same direction. I got to know about his life. And whatever I ask him to do is negotiable on the front end. Tell me why you can't do what we've agreed to. Don't call me and tell me why you didn't. I get reasons on the front end. I get excuses on the back end. And I'll buy the reasons the first 2 or 3 times, even if I think it's garbage, because that's what he needs. There's only ever one question. It's what does he need? That's the only question. And he needs me to buy that the first couple of times. Now, if it keeps coming, we're going to talk about it. But I'll buy it the first couple of times. And I'm going to love him through these steps. If he can convince me that he's not going to let me take him through the 12 steps, I have to honor his choice. Job 1 remains to love him. Job 2 becomes to make it easy for him to come back. Because if he doesn't do the 12 steps, he ain't staying. And this is what I do. I have found that anger and love never travel together. They're mutually exclusive. But sadness and love do. And I go to him and say, I have a great sadness. We've talked a number of times. And I have a great sadness. And this conversation is for me. It isn't. Hopefully it's for you, but it's definitely for me. I cannot continue to wear the title of sponsor for you because you're not allowing me to do the job. So I'm not your sponsor. Don't think you've had one. You haven't. And you're not in the program of AA. Don't think you are because you haven't done the 12 steps. I'm telling you that for me. I hope what you're doing is going to work. I don't think it will. I hope it does. But if it doesn't, I'm going to have to sleep when you go back out because the price on your relapse could be prison for the rest of your life or even kill you. And I have to be able to sleep knowing I've told you the truth. And the truth is, I don't think what you're doing is going to work. You have not allowed me to sponsor you and you're not an AA. But I don't want you to be able to sit on bar stool thinking you tried AA because you didn't. And I'm not angry with you. I'm simply honoring your choice. The Big Book tells me in 2 places. I've done a number of Big Book weekends with a guy named Bob Darrell. If you haven't heard Bob, you know the rules. And we used to get this question all the time: how many do you sponsor? Our cute answer was half, about half. That's a terrible answer. Terrible answer. Don't let him fade away. If I let him fade away, he can sit on that bar stool and believe he tried AA, and there's no reason to go back. If I let him fade away, I've signed his death warrant. If I make sure he understands he was never here, it's the first piece that make it easy for him to come back. The second piece is when he gets back, I will love all over him. I will gush all over him. And I will tell him, if anybody gives you any trash at all for having gone back out, speed dial me and hand them the phone, and I will crush them before your very eyes, because we don't do that. We do not shoot our wounded here. We don't do it. And I will love on you, and we'll go to the meeting together. And I don't care if you never get another desired ship. I want to make it easy for you to stay here as long as you're willing to do the work. This program is not for those who need it, and it's not for the ones that want it. It is very specifically and only for the ones who will actually do it. They all get it. They all get it. And I'm just here to help you do that. So many more things. I want to tell you a story. This was confirmed. This has been confirmed to me by somebody who did this as a true story. There was a Frenchman who was a parachutist. His great passion was free fall. He liked to step out of the plane at 10 or 12,000 feet and tumble and dive and do the acrobatics you can do in free fall. It was his great passion. And one day they were approaching the drop zone at about 10,000 feet. And he was an instructor, and he was working with his novices, doing final checks on their equipment. They hit some turbulence, and he was thrown out. And he'd violated one of the rules, and that was the one. He's out at 10,000 feet with no chute. And he's faced with a choice. And the choice is to be terrified of the future, to place blame, to have a bunch of resentment and negative emotion, or to do the thing he loved the most for the rest of his life. And they watched him as he fell. And he tumbled, and he dived, and he did the acrobatics you could do in free fall. I would propose that all of us fell out of the plane the moment we were born. Unlike the skydiver, we don't have a good idea what's going to be over. We face the exact same set of choices: to be terrified of the future, to place blame, have a bunch of resentment and negative emotion, or to do the thing we love the most for the rest of our lives. It was necessary for me to do the 12 steps, to dig the poison out of my soul, to find out who I really am, to find out what it is that I love to do. And what I love to do is to hang out with people in recovery. We're the most fascinating people in the world. Fascinating people in the world. I want to close with, I think, the most important thing I have said. I think it's the most important thing that's ever been said in an AA meeting. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. I love you with all my heart. Thank you for letting me do this.
Thank you very much, speaker. Scott, can you please pick the topic for our beginners meeting?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank God for coming. Boy, did he show up today for me. I don't know how it was for you, but I'm blown away by that talk. I'd love to hear it myself. The topic is sponsorship. Get one, be one.